Hey, what's going on, folks? Happy Wednesday morning. It's 6:30 a.m. and prices of Bitcoin have just exploded overnight. 8162. Um, this is actually right near our high target of 8150. Now, we're still in that consolidation block from previously. I stated to the community and you guys a couple days ago that there's a higher chance that we were going to head into this block right here. All right, and we basically did. The high target was 8150, and we've achieved that. Now, the question is that once we try to pierce this, what is the kind of reaction we're going to get? Now, sometimes the reactions are kind of aggressive where, if you try to go up too fast, you'll get rejected and get sent back down. And, sent back down doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to break down, like, you're not going to go up from here and break down all the way. It could very well just mean that you pull back inside the pre-breakout levels. So for example, in this case, we could draw out somewhat of a ascending triangle, kind of like this, right? We'll do that, and we'll do something like this, right? So this is your ascending triangle breakout to the upside. And you can even look at this as a bull flag or a bull pennant, right? The target from this right here, if you're looking at this purely from the perspective of a bull flag, is if you measure the pole right here, right? And you place the breakout right there. Okay, so we just broke out right there. We should be getting to about 8850 as per the measured move. Now remember, measured moves don't necessarily mean that they have to come through based on just the measurement of that. It's just a general outline of where we could potentially get to. Okay, now here's the thing. I like breakouts like this, but if I missed it, which I did, right? Yesterday, I even told my community members that I did expect, a higher probability of this thing breaking up. But unfortunately, this happened in the nighttime zone of the US. So I was not awake to catch this breakout. But the fact that it happened, right? And the fact that we made a nice, big up move over here and broke out with this particular candle right here, okay? Your chance to get in was right on the closing of this candle. As soon as this candle closed right above this key area right here, that was your trigger, I would have pulled the trigger if I was awake, right? So then you would have caught from 78.25 all the way to 81.50 or so, right? So that, $200-300 move you would have caught. Now here's the thing, if you miss that move, instead of chasing the move, all right, here are some things that you can do, or rather what I'm considering. We either wait for a retrace to watch this area be tested as support, okay? And then this starts bouncing back up again if it does hold as support. Because remember, if this marker, this line right here was resistance, it needs to turn back and flip into support. Now, it's not necessary, it's not a mandatory technical factor, okay? It just happens to be that bots and algos often prefer that, once that area has kind of been broken like this, people want to ensure, or rather bots and algos and professionals want to ensure that this level right here doesn't just want to collapse back under, right? And so flipping this area under support ensures that, all right, well, now we have created a floor. So in case we revisit this area, right, we can rebuy here with other people. Okay, so this is how bots and algos basically flip key areas of resistance into support and vice versa. Okay, so like I said, in this ascending triangle, right, you can also do this kind of measurement. So let's just say this was the height of the triangle right there, right? And you can do a breakout right there. So breakout from here brings us to a target about 8250 or so. So we're actually pretty close to that. Well, actually, let me bring this down a little bit. There we go. So the target for that is about 8250. Yeah. So, we're fairly close to both targets being hit in terms of, this key area of resistance right here, as well as that measured move of the triangle. Now, if you're looking at it as a bull flag perspective, that target is obviously 8800. Now let's look at other technical factors that I've stated, that could be in the way, right? So for one, okay, let's do it this way. Okay. So I talked about this yearly VWAP, okay? So you can see the yearly VWAP right there was about 8,050 or so. Oops, let me go to that. Okay, so that's on 8,050 or so, which obviously, prices pierced that, right? So pretty good sign. And then if you remember from January 2020, or I'm sorry, January 24th, 2020, you could see that was the previous base right there, 8,200 or so, 82, let's see, let's get the exact figure, 82.23. Okay, and the high that we've put in today is 81.95. Pretty darn close, okay? So all these things are telling us that we're coming into headwinds of strong resistance. Now, I'm not saying that, hey, just because we're coming into strong resistance, we have to get rejected. Clearly, the market is bullish, right? The market is bullish and it's moving up. But I want you guys to keep in mind that it is also bullish on the hype of all this Fed stimulus coming in. And I've told you all this before, that with all this free money coming in, the markets are actually not moving on natural inflows, okay? It's really the pressure from the Fed to ensure that there's really no selling that is not absorbed, right? So the Fed is out there stepping up and buying whatever it can in the other asset classes. And so people themselves, right, the professionals who are in crypto, or the smaller institutions or hedge funds that are in crypto, they feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that the Fed has their back, okay? So remember, at some point that rug is going to get pulled though, okay? Because the Fed cannot support prices forever. And with the way the economy looks right now, if the Fed cannot support prices, the intrinsic value of these assets are much lower. Now, I've stated before, I personally believe that Bitcoin will probably have another leg down, just like the stock market. And obviously, that doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, Bitcoin or the stock market doesn't have to do anything that I say. Okay, it doesn't care about my feelings, right? But what I do believe is that historically, whenever you have these kinds of big drops and these up moves, okay, especially these V-style up moves, almost 60 to 70% of the time, and I want to be sure that I'm a bit more accurate on the statistic because I read it on a hedge fund Twitter page, right? I want to make sure that the statistic of 60 to 70% is vetted properly. So don't quote me on that yet. But from what I've read or understood is that majority of these drops right here, okay, when they have this kind of strong recovery to the upside, there's a higher probability that these have at least a pullback towards, its lows, or maybe somewhere close to its lows, maybe putting in, maybe like a W-style recovery. Or, it might do something like this, pierce the low just a little bit and then go up, okay? So the probabilities historically are on the side that we do expect another correction at some point, right? But again, past history does not dictate future performance, right? It does not dictate what's going to happen in terms of price action movement in the future, okay? The only thing I can tell you right now is that, this is a very bullish movement, and it's very hard to fight, right? I've personally told my community that in this particular area, when we were consolidating, I was bullish. As long as we stay inside this consolidation, I'm bullish, okay? It just so happened to be that I did not catch this up move, but I was actually in some spot buys in some altcoins which have benefited, okay? So I'm doing pretty decent on those, but obviously, Bitcoin took the lion's share of the move in terms of percentage, okay? But I'm happy with that, all right? Now, going forward in terms of planning, we can start looking at how the trading light walls are looking. You could see right here, there's some good amount of selling built up all the way up to $8,300. If we group this a little bit higher, right, the biggest walls are somewhere around 8,300. There's something around 8,400. And then I guess nothing really has been built up higher. So if, let's just say, we start busting past 8,150. Well, like I said, 8,800 is a big target, all right? Another reason why we can start talking about, this particular area right here, 8,150 being potentially strong resistance, is if you look at this, right? All right, let's do this right here. All right, let's turn on the pivots, okay? Notice where the monthly pivot is right now. Basically where we are, right? And it's about 8,150 or so, okay? So you can see the monthly pivot is currently right now just rejecting price. Okay, again, that doesn't mean that price is definitely going to get rejected here, but yeah, you know, there's a high chance that because there's so many different reasons for price to get rejected here with the resistance, it's possible. All right, now personally, I'm not going to fade this move, meaning I'm not going to short this right now. It'd just be, you know, silly, right? I do understand that 8150 is strong resistance. I do understand that the monthly pivot is right there. I think even the weekly pivot is right around that same area. Let's check that out. Yeah, so the weekly pivot is right there too, as you can see, right? So for the most part, I mean, you know, we've now made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is now our 7th consecutive bullish week. Okay, that's a lot. That's definitely a lot. And last time we had 7 consecutive weeks, we had, you know, I think back here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then this 8th one right here was a big up move, but then came back down a little bit. Okay, I don't really remember, you know, 7 or 8 consecutive weeks other than maybe back here in the 2017 bull market. That's not 7. I think that's 3, 4, 5. That's 5 right there. This one is 1. All that's a doji. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 6. Back here is when we had the last 7 consecutive weeks, folks. Right there. Okay. So way back in March to about June or May 2017. That's when we had the 7 consecutive weeks. I mean, listen, I think that's pretty fantastic given the fact that we have a halving coming up. But I personally am not in belief that macro factors in terms of high risk assets like Bitcoin are going to have the halving effect be particularly important if the S&P 500, the American markets, or the global markets start to tank down. Nothing is going to matter about the halving or anything related to Bitcoin or any high risk asset if the global markets are not looking healthy. So this is why I stated that it is very important for the S&P 500, E-mini futures, you know, the overall American stock market, especially to look healthy and good. If it did not, I could almost say with more certainty that Bitcoin would not either. Okay, but it's looking good, right? You know, you could see the S&P 500 futures has climbed up and up further and further. Okay, so it's a pretty positive sign. Listen, we have no signs of slowing down in the S&P 500, but we do have very important fib levels coming up. Keep in mind, right? If you look at the 618 fib right there, that's around 29.34. We missed that mark yesterday in yesterday's candle at 29.21, so about 13 points or so. Okay, so we're pretty close to that level. All right. Historically, bear market rallies have ended between the 50 and the 618 fib, right? Like that, and they've rolled over, kind of like this. Okay, so do keep that in mind, and this is why I state that. You know, I get that things are looking bullish right now, and I know everyone wants to be bullish, but keep it contained. Understand that, you know, we're going through a very interesting transition in the world. And people who think that Bitcoin's halving is the one thing that's going to, you know, go against everything that's happening in the world or even the stock market, I think they're going to be wrong. I really think they're going to be wrong, because the only reason Bitcoin is moving up, in my opinion, is because global liquidity as well as, you know, global markets are actually pushing up. You know, whether you want to look at this market right here, we can even look at the Japanese markets. You can see they've made a big upthrust. You know, we can look at the Shanghai Composite, right? Still big upthrust back up. So you could see for the most part, you know, the only reason that Bitcoin has been moving up is because global markets have themselves rebounded as well. Okay, now where could we be wrong? Or rather, you know, how much further could price go to, right? Well, for one, you know, I still think that price could keep moving, okay? I think that from here, the next big level, if we get past that 8150, I really think we can get to $9,200. Okay, that's my belief, because if you look at this multi-day consolidation before this big drop, right, it's almost, you know, similar to what happened here. where we had, a few days of consolidation right here before that big drop that we moved sideways and then pushed up all the way through with a short squeeze, right? So in that short squeeze right there, if you look, this last candle that we had, right? Like, let's just say this big candle, the high was, what is it? About like 10,450 or so, let's just say, right? You could see that this wick kind of just poked just past that. And so if we're making that same logic, I would probably say that we're going to get just past this high right here, which is about 92.25. So we might get to, 92.50, 92.75 or so. Okay. That would be really interesting if we can, get up there and then start rolling back over. Because like I said, if we start rolling back over, I think this kind of stair stepping that we've made up, just like we made the stair stepping on the way up, is going to collapse back down under just like this did. Okay. So it's just something to pay attention to. All right. Here's our dollar yen trade. We took this with the community yesterday. Doing pretty great so far. We took the trigger right there around 106.91. Price is broken down. So our short is doing well from here down about where we are right now. So we're up about 0.42% on our short trade. So looking pretty darn good. All right. Let me see how USO closed yesterday. Remember, I've stated in our community how USO has been doing, looks like it took off pre-market. Heck of a movement overnight, right? So, USO has obviously been a very volatile asset, and it's just something to be careful of. I personally don't think that it's really worth anything, but it looks like in pre-market it's just taking off, probably because, I don't know, maybe they redid their fund or something interesting happened in terms of their allocation. Excuse me. Let's see what happened in the futures markets in the June contract. See, June contract barely even moved, right? The futures contract. This is why, USO, the ETF, is so worthless, because it just does like random stuff like this. It just doesn't make any sense. So, fact of the matter is, I don't know. I really don't know why this thing is worth anything, but I'll have to look into the news why it popped off overnight. But for the most part, I'm going to stay away from it. But you guys could obviously do your own research, and make sure you check out our Twitter page. I have a ton of information and things I retweet that are pretty important that you can read up on, and very important information. All right. But that's it, folks. Thank you so much for everything, and hope you guys join the Advantage community. The link is below, and we're changing the prices starting May 5th, so make sure you guys join before that, which is the discounted price that we have right now. All right, that's it. Take care and cheers.